The idea that there is a basic pattern found within the many narratives from around the world was described by Joseph Campbell in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Campbell held that numerous myths from disparate times and regions share fundamental structures and stages. He referred to this underlying structure as the monomyth, and also as the hero's journey. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. Campbell mapped out 17 stages along this journey, although very few myths contain all of these stages, and some myths may deal with the stages in a somewhat different order. These 17 stages can be grouped into 3 sections: departure, sometimes called separation, initiation, and return. Departure has to do with the hero's adventure prior to the quest, and consists of 5 stages: the call to adventure, refusal of the call, supernatural aid, the crossing of the first threshold, the belly of the whale. Initiation deals with the hero's many adventures along the way and contains 6 stages: the road of trials, the meeting with the goddess, woman as the temptress, atonement with the father, apotheosis, the ultimate boon. And return is about the hero's return with knowledge and powers acquired on the journey. It also contains 6 stages: refusal of the return, the magic flight, rescue from without, the crossing of the return threshold, master of the 2 worlds, freedom to live. Campbell's work provides an atlas for the spirit and has been consciously applied by a wide field of modern writers and artists. For example, in Tolkien's novel, The Lord of the Rings, and in movies like Star Wars, The Lion King, and The Matrix. This partly explains their success because these contemporary works tell the story that is already present within our own unconsciousness. They help us recollect what we fail to remember. Whereas the monomyth refers to the spiritual journey of a single person, one could also apply it to the spiritual journey of humanity on a collective level. Doing so would suggest that the defining spirit of a time, or zeitgeist, also evolves according to a well-defined pattern which is described by Campbell's monomyth. However, if this were the case, then it would still be very difficult, if not impossible, to fit the evolution of the zeitgeist within Campbell's framework of the monomyth due to the variety of domains which are influenced by the zeitgeist. These domains include the scientific domain, the economic domain, the political domain, and the spiritual domain, just to name a few. For now, let's focus on the scientific domain, more specifically on the field of physics that is concerned with a set of physical laws describing the motion of bodies, and see how well the evolution within this field of science follows the list of stages provided by Joseph Campbell. Although in early times some philosophers and astronomers had questioned the idea of the Earth being the center of the universe, geocentrism remained the status quo until the end of the 17th century. Tycho Brahe was inspired by the model that had been provided by Nicholas Copernicus in the mid-16th century, which places the sun in the center. Brahe realized that by determining the precise position of the planets over a long period of time, one could attain an accurate picture of the whole planetary situation, and therefore, maybe once and for all, end all discussions about the center of our planetary system. So he set out to make accurate observations of the sky at night instead of participating in endless discussions during the day. The many anomalies that had already occurred in the geocentric model, the heliocentric model of Copernicus, and the published work of Brahe that followed, may in this context be seen as the call to adventure for the scientist. Of course, the established institutions proclaimed a different view of the universe. The sense of duty or obligation towards these institutions and the fear of the consequences of going against the orthodox views may for many have represented a refusal of the call. Mathematics may in this context be seen as the magical helper that guides the scientists through their adventure of discovery. It provides some kind of supernatural aid for the scientist on their quest. The crossing of the first threshold is the point where the hero actually crosses into the field of adventure, leaving the known limits of his or her world and venturing into an unknown and dangerous realm where the rules and limits are not known. This crossing took place with the work of Galileo Galilei, who was capable of formulating the acceleration of falling bodies on the Earth, but also with Kepler's laws of planetary motion, which describe the orbital motion of the planets around the Sun. The belly of the whale represents the final separation from the hero's known world and self. By entering this stage, the person shows their willingness to undergo a metamorphosis. The belly of the whale and the heavenly land beyond, above, and below the confines of the world are one and the same. This idea is reflected by Newton's realization, which supposedly occurred when he saw an apple fall from a tree. The force that pulls the apple towards the Earth is the same force that keeps the moon and planets in orbit. Terrestrial and celestial mechanics were suddenly combined into one, and this unification gave birth to universal gravitation. With this insight, the scientists entered the second section of the hero's journey, called initiation. The first stage of initiation is called the Road of Trials, and it is here that the scientist appears to be currently found. This stage is a series of tests, tasks, or ordeals that a person must undergo to begin the transformation, which often comes in threes. The number 3 can in this case be related to the earlier mentioned 3 realms of perception. In Newtonian mechanics, space and time are considered independent coordinates due to the fact that Newtonian mechanics is based on flat geometry. For that reason, it is found in the realm of opposites, space versus time. The formulation of Newtonian mechanics, which was part of the first scientific revolution, may therefore be considered as the completion of the first task of the Road of Trials. The theory of relativity incorporates curved geometry to describe the motion of bodies instead of flat geometry, and as a result of this, space and time have become interconnected and interdependent. This insight we owe to the Russian-German mathematician Hermann Minkowski. Henceforth, space by itself and time by itself are doomed to fade away into mere shadows, and only a kind of union of the two will preserve an independent reality. Relativity mechanics is therefore found in the realm of complements, and its formulation, which initiated the second scientific revolution, may be considered as the completion of the second task of the Road of Trials. A holistic mechanics could be achieved by replacing the underlying geometry of the theory of relativity for a holistic geometry such as fractal geometry. Accordingly, this would be the third task for the collective consciousness on a scientific level, and it has, in fact, already been completed. Yet scale relativity, as it is called, still awaits general acceptance. Scale relativity is said to be an empty theory without any hierarchy, and it is therefore ignored by mainstream science. Nevertheless, the characteristic of being empty and the lack of hierarchy as we know it are exactly the traits of any holistic theory. It should be of no surprise, however, that scale relativity is not capable of gaining any serious attention. If this third task presented by the Road of Trials were to be completed, then the zeitgeist would move forward, and according to Campbell's list, enter the next stage called the meeting with the goddess. And God forbid the zeitgeist meets up with the goddess. That would upset the whole apple cart of our male-dominated society. Rest assured, the minds of physicists are neatly occupied with string theory.